Well, howdy there, folks. James, Political Friar, coming to you again. Got the University of Oregon hat on, and so we're going to talk about a political topic today. Specifically, we're going to talk about why Nikki Haley hasn't dropped out yet. Donald Trump has escalated his attacks on Nikki Haley to the level of shrill that we haven't seen him uh, really deploy against fellow Republicans, with the possible exception of Liz Cheney. And it's interesting. It's interesting because I think that Nikki Haley sees that Donald Trump's sort of maniacal attacks against her as probably her best chance to get back into this. See, Nikki Haley is taking a bit of a page from Donald Trump's playbook. She is seeing Donald Trump as an emotional, reactionary, relatively irrational person and painting him the same way Donald Trump paints all of the Democrats who freak out about him all the time. There was a you know threat from Donald Trump to ban all of the donors for Nikki Haley from ever getting into the MAGA circle, quote unquote. And immediately Nikki Haley has T-shirts printed up saying "banned from the inner circle." It's right out of Trump's playbook of making T-shirts glorifying the things that are supposed to be political hits, and she's got a month. She's now got a month to see whether she can goad Donald Trump into going full thermonuclear nutting man. And that isn't attractive. The people who support Donald Trump generally still say that part of the Donald Trump show isn't attractive. And Nikki Haley is thinking that maybe she can capitalize on it. Now, listen, she's not right. The Republicans are not going to abandon Trump, barring some outside force. But those outside forces are there too. See, if the Supreme Court somehow upholds the 14th Amendment challenge out of Colorado, Nikki Haley slides into the favorites position. I don't think Ron DeSantis is coming back. And that would mean she's on a glide path to the nomination. Now, I don't think the Supreme Court's going to do that, but, you know, it's like the old story about the guy who is set for execution. He appeals to the king. He says, "King, king, don't kill me. If you don't kill me, I'll teach your horse how to sing." And the king says, "Oh, you can't teach my horse how to sing." And he says, "No, no, no. Give me a year. Don't kill me for a year, and I'll teach your horse how to sing. And if after the end of 1 year, if the horse can't sing, you can kill me then." And the king says, "Fine, I'll give you a year." And the executioner bumps him and says, "You're never going to teach that horse how to sing." And the guy says, "Well, I have a year. And in a year's time, maybe I'll die, or maybe the king will die, or maybe the horse will sing." Well, Nikki's got a month to make the horse sing. And the horse could sing with Donald Trump imploding based on his own stress or lack of calm temperament. He clearly can't be trusted in a courtroom, as he's proved with the E. Jean Carroll case. He literally could not contain himself sitting there at the defense table, and so there's a chance that she could just prod him into some kind of mistake. There's a chance that his legal issues will catch up with him, and there's a chance the horse will sing. It's kind of the same sort of thing. So there's also some green shoots that have come out of the exit polling in New Hampshire and Iowa that might give Nikki Haley a little bit of a reason to stick around. And the biggest one, the people who voted for a candidate because they have the right temperament being an important factor for their vote. Well, Nikki Haley won 84% of the people in New Hampshire who voted based on the person having the right temperament. That could matter. And that was 21% of the voters. That was one of the four most important issues that people voted on. Now, of course, Donald Trump won on immigration, and that largely drove him over the finish line in that sort of thing. The other thing to note is that of people who described themselves as angry, 80% of them voted for Donald Trump. Anger is really hard to sustain over the long term. We've got months to go for that anger to just become exhaustion. And so I don't know if Donald Trump can keep him whipped up. He seems to be able to. But another interesting bit of the exit polling, this isn't at all surprising. Even though college grads and non-college grads were about even, Nikki Haley crushed Donald Trump on the college grads, and Donald Trump crushed Nikki Haley on the non-college grads. I'm not sure that the larger electorate is going to be sufficiently made up of non-college grads to get Donald Trump to win a general election. And so if Nikki Haley can make this argument about, well, basically you've got half the population with college degrees, and of those, that half the population of college degrees, like 75% of them are going to vote for Biden, Trump doesn't have a chance to win. And so if she can make that argument, then there's something to that. The next interesting thing that came out of the exit polls is among the people who are engaged with the reality that Joe Biden won the election, which is now upwards of 70% of the total population. 76% of those folks voted for Nikki Haley. 85% of Donald Trump's supporters are delusional. It's not the wrong word. Joe Biden won the election. 85% of Donald Trump's supporters think he didn't. That is really hard to maintain a fiction as a basis for political movement. I mean, people like Chavez in Venezuela managed it for a while, but eventually it falls apart. And so there's a chance there that that illusion will eventually pop, and somebody's got to be there when it happens. And so Nikki Haley is waiting for that horse to sing, for lack of a better word. The final thing to note, and I don't know whether she can get this through because it's a bit of a difficult message, but something like half of the people who supported Nikki Haley in Iowa and New Hampshire will not support Donald Trump in the general election. That means that of her 4% of the people in Iowa, 22% of those folks are saying to pollsters in January they'll vote for Biden over Trump. And that means Trump doesn't have a chance in heck of winning New Hampshire. I mean, he might have trouble winning Iowa with that number. There is such a negative around Donald Trump among voters who have actually been engaged that Nikki Haley is just waiting and hoping that Donald Trump sinks himself. Now, yes, the national polls have Donald Trump trouncing Nikki Haley, but there hasn't been a national campaign. And the voters in this country don't actually get engaged until they're near to being asked to vote. It's something like 40% of the people in Iowa and New Hampshire decided who they're going to vote for in the last week. This is the information level that we've got to contend with, and recognizing that national polls at this point are pointless. They are reflections of people's feelings about these candidates from the previous election, because it is a rematch, and they're reflections of the president and their own feelings, because the president's going to take hits based off of how people feel, but the ex-president who is not actually in office is probably just going to have his priors reconfirmed. So that's why Nikki Haley's hanging out. Nikki Haley's hanging out to see whether the horse sings, to see whether Trump implodes. And because she's 52, in a scenario where Donald Trump gets the nomination and gets wrecked by the Democrats in 2024, which is a non-zero chance, Donald Trump has done worse. Every time he's been on the ballot, he's done worse. He lost the popular vote in 2016, won the Electoral College, we know. He lost what should have been easy midterm elections in 2022. It was a absolute truism that you couldn't win the primary without Trump, and you couldn't win the general with him. The only person who actually won a general election in 2022 was J.D. Vance in Ohio. Everybody else in a high-profile race where the Donald Trump candidate ran against sometimes really terrible Democrats, they lost. So Donald Trump, from a general election perspective, as we have seen these things be tested with actual votes from actual people who have actually had a political campaign directed at him, he's not winning. And then we know how it went in 2020 and 2018. He lost. He won in 2016, and he's lost every other time. It's it's been brutal. And so Nikki Haley says, well, hey, if the trend continues, come 2028, I told you so is a strong political argument. She comes and says, listen, I told you that guy was poisoned. I told you that Republicans can't win with him. Now let's do something with a new generation, because at that point, Donald Trump's going to be 81 years old. And Nikki Haley may very well have stumbled onto the right approach to combating Donald Trump. Say, I know you like Donald Trump, but he's 77. He's going to be 78 on election day. He's soft in the head. And I think most 78-year-olds are to one degree or another soft in the head. I think that's a message that could stick, especially because of all of the negative echo chamber that these Republicans are subjected to regarding Joe Biden. If they are willing to say that you shouldn't have a president be soft in the head, well, maybe you shouldn't have Trump at 78 or Joe Biden at 82. And that is the attack that Nikki Haley will try out over the next month. And then she probably will continue to hang out, because it turns out she actually does have enough money to hang out. She has raised that much cash that she can do something like George H.W. Bush did in 1980. You just stick around. Win a state here from Reagan, win a state there from Reagan. I mean, it ended up that Reagan, being the big person that he was, made H.W. Bush his vice president, and eventually H.W. Bush won the presidency. Now, Donald Trump is way too, full of vitriol and vileness to do that. He's no Ronald Reagan. But you can see a path where the Republican Party implodes and needs new leadership. And that new leadership, well, it could look like Nikki Haley. It could look like Ron DeSantis. It could look like both of them. That is an interesting thought. And one that, when you're playing the long game, as you can do when you're 52 and the way you can't do when you're 78, might work out. So stay tuned, see what happens. But Nikki Haley probably will stick together until Super Tuesday. Some of this monkey business with the Republican National Committee trying to push her out is not going to work. That's, if anything, going to backfire. I think the Nikki Haley supporters, being former Trump supporters, are fairly anti-institutionalist. And when you have what is in effect the swamp saying that they want Donald Trump, well, it might not work for him. Anyway, it's just a thought. Let me know how wrong I am in the comments down below. Leave me a message. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. But most important, tell a friend. I really appreciate you. Thanks.